I'm going out. Is there anything you want?
Yes, I just want to go downstairs and walk straight out of this house. Walk straight out of this house.
James! Stop him! Stop him!
Thank you.
Darling.
I'm sorry. I just lost control.
Every government has its Secret Service branch. America, it's CIA, France, Deuxième Bureau, England, MI5. A messy job? Well, that's when they usually call on me or someone like me. Oh, yes. My name is Drake. John Drake.
Somewhere walking around on the face of the earth, most of us have at least one double. Someone who resembles us so closely that we wouldn't be surprised if his face looked back at us out of the mirror. James Carpenter was of a certain type. We soon found half a dozen men in the United States who resembled him closely enough for my purposes. But for the double I wanted, likeness was not enough. He had to be a man of many qualities. He had to have a sense of adventure, yet a singleness of purpose. He had to be a man of integrity, and yet ready, if things went wrong, to take a big risk. Then he also had to be a man of quick decision and physical courage of a high degree. Perhaps there was no such man. Next on my list was Oskar Schumack, concert pianist, but with quite a war record. I soon got to know him. I liked him from the start. It was time to give him his first test. Looked as if I'd found my man at last. I decided the time had come for Oskar to meet Mrs. Carpenter. I had our embassy in Caladas fly her up to Chicago.
Thank you. Good evening, Mrs. Carpenter. My name is John Drake. I trust you had a comfortable flight. Like to sit down? You must
Why have you sent for me? What are we doing here?
Well, I don't want to build your hopes too high, Mrs. Carpenter, but I think we have a plan for getting your husband out of Caladas.
Oh, if only you could. I don't think he can stand it much longer.
Did they tell me he's not well enough to make a difficult journey?
Oh, he isn't. Not now.
Then the first thing we have to do, Mrs. Carpenter, is to persuade Oskar Schumack to help us.
Oskar Schumack?
Yeah. That's him now.
The pianist?
Yes. You ever seen him?
No. No, but then we're out of touch down there.
Of course. Oh, here he is now. Oskar Schumack, I'd like you to meet Mrs. Carpenter. Well, what is it?
Nothing.
Mr. Schumann, please, please.
Excuse me, yes, of course. You all right, Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes, thank you. Oh, yes, I'm fine. I'm sorry. Could I have a cigarette, please?
Of course. I'm sorry, I should have warned you, but I wanted to see how you'd react to him.
Well, you're seeing now, aren't you?
Is he very like your husband?
Yes, exactly. At least, what he used to be like a year ago before his illness.
Has he changed much?
No. No, not really. It's just that he's lost hope.
Ah. And now, Mrs. Carpenter, I hope you are feeling better.
I am not used to making such a devastating first impression.
I'm sorry.
Oh, please, don't be. I am flattered.
For a moment, Mrs. Carpenter mistook you for her husband.
Ah, I am even more flattered.
He is James Carpenter.
James Carpenter. Well, that seems to ring a bell.
He's in Calados.
I have it. It was some time back, an American prisoner in our own embassy.
That's right. During one of their anti-American phases, the local government there accused him of espionage. He managed to escape and hole out in our embassy. They can't touch him there because technically it's on American soil.
They tried him in his absence and sentenced him to death.
Since then, we've been trying to get him out of Calados, but without any success. The local police there keep a watch on the embassy for 24 hours a day.
I'm beginning to feel very sorry for my double. How long has this siege been going on?
Long time, Oscar. 5 years.
John, will you come and have a drink or a talk? I'll go home to bed, but please stop playing the piano. It's an assault on the ear.
Tell me something. What do you think of Sue Carpenter?
Sue. You know, Darwin had something in his theory of natural selection. I find her irresistible, and she chose a man just like me, no? But, John, Sue Carpenter did not come to my dressing room tonight by chance. And I am beginning to suspect that my meeting with you was not by chance. Who are you, Mr. John Drake? And what are you up to?
5 years is an awful long time, Oscar.
You're right. There must be some way of getting him out of there.
Yeah, there must be.
But if there were, they would have done it, eh? Maybe it's not possible.
Oh, unless someone was pretending to be playing one tune while he was really playing another.
Oh?
I have a plan.
I knew it. That's what you've been up to all the time, huh? You have a plan, and I'm willing to bet that I am right in the middle of it, huh?
That's right, Oscar. You're the kingpin.
And you want me to go down to that corrupt little island and get myself involved in a police state vendetta, huh?
That's right. That's exactly what I want.
You are an unscrupulous ruffian. Well, when do we leave?
I booked the tickets for tomorrow morning.
You know, John, I don't like the way that passport official looked at me at the airport, huh? You said they have a police guard at the embassy 24 hours a day.
That's right.
Well, if I look so much like Carpenter, maybe they arrest me before I get in, huh?
No, they only search traffic coming out here.
Oh, I've done some crazy things in my life.
We'll put them on. Here's the embassy. Carpenter.
Mr. Shumack, I can't tell you how much my husband and I appreciate your courageous gesture in coming down here and taking such a risk for a complete stranger.
Now, Mrs. Carpenter, if you'll please take us to meet your husband.
Oh, yes, of course.
Thank you very much. After you, Oscar.
James, this is Mr. Drake and Mr. Shumack.
Well, James, how does it feel to be such a handsome fellow, huh?
Mr. Sumac, you sure you want to go ahead with this? I see no reason why you should risk all this danger for my sake.
But don't give it another thought. But while we're on the subject, I should like to know what plans you have after James is safely away for getting me out.
Oh, no. Don't worry about it.
Oh, but I do.
All right, well, the very worst, you'll have a long tramp over the mountains and a trip on the fishing boat. And in the meantime, I hope we can find a more congenial way.
So long as it isn't a prison yard and a rope, huh?
Mr. Carpenter, have you been seen by the police lately? Any pictures?
No, but they've tried hard enough. They got a telescopic camera set up in a window over there. They've done everything they can to get a look at me, but I haven't given them that pleasure.
Their latest picture must be at least 5 years old.
In all that time, the police have not relaxed their watch.
Well, not Colonel Vasco. He's the chief of police. He's determined to get me. It's an obsession.
It suits President Juarez. Politically, he's got his own little Cold War, and he wants to keep it going.
Mr. Drake, before you go any further, I don't think this is going to work. And I don't want to get Mr. Sumac involved.
But we had word from your wife that you were willing to try.
Well, maybe, but since then,
Since then, you've got cold feet? You've lost your nerve?
Now, steady, John. Well, it isn't that. It's just that I've been thinking that...
Yes, you go on thinking. About home. Brentwood, L.A., isn't it? You'll just do exactly as I tell you. And you'll be home by tomorrow night. How does that sound?
Well, all right, Mr. Drake, I'm with you. What do you want me to do?
Right, now let's have a look at you both. Well, you're certainly very much alike, but not identical. You, James, you look ill, you've got a scar in your cheek, and we'll have to do something about that hair. Whereas Oscar here is disgustingly healthy. Your voices are different, so that does away with the first plan. Now we must use the alternative, which means persuading Colonel Vasco, the local chief of police, and everyone else that James Carpenter is Oscar Schumack, the celebrated concert pianist.
It won't work.
Oh, yes, it will, with the right trimmings.
Yes. Yes, it is. No. Really? Well, I wonder why. That was our attaché. He sent out the invitations last week for Mr. Schumach's reception here tomorrow night. Now, Colonel Vasco's telephoned personally to say he'd be delighted to attend.
Perhaps someone has been telling him that Mr. Schumack who flew in today is the spitting image of the notorious James Carpenter.
A very confusing firm.
Following evening, we introduced James Carpenter to the elite of Calados as Oscar Schumack. Colonel Vasco arrived in good time. I decided to take the bull by the horns.
Colonel Vasco, I'd like you to meet Oscar Schumack.
Oh, we have met before.
Oh, I don't think so.
That's possible. Mr. Schumack travels everywhere, you know.
But I do not.
Well, this is my first visit to the island.
And it's very odd. I feel as though I have seen you often.
Mr. Schumack often has his picture in the papers and on disc sleeves everywhere.
Cigarette.
Thank you.
Perhaps you would explain something for me.
Oh, I'd be glad to.
Most concert pianists, their fingers, they are short and stubby, like mine. But yours are not particularly so. Why is that?
Well,
After all, senor, you are one of the greatest.
you flatter me, Colonel.
How else could you tackle Reineger's sonata? I look forward to hearing you this evening. Oh, Mr. Schumack, how do you propose to interpret the second movement? Strictly to tempo, or do you play it rubato?
Well, it's a bit difficult to...
You'll have to pardon this, Colonel. I'm afraid the one thing that Mr. Schumack never discusses before a concert is his music.
Ah, how thoughtless of me. I apologize.
I've just seen the Brazilian ambassador. I promised him a word with the maestro before we leave. Would you come this way, Oscar?
I was hoping that Colonel Vasco had interpreted that little performance just the way I wanted. Only magic could transform Carpenter into a concert pianist. And so that is what we have to have.
Let's try that again. Now, remember, as you change over, your movements must synchronize exactly. Here we go. Now, ready? Oscar, I can see your hand. Step back, keep still. Ready. James. In you go. That's pretty good. Yeah. That was pretty good. We'll try once more. Oh, James, you forgot the handkerchief. Right, this time with the palm. All right. Now, watch the dicky bird. Here we go. Ready once more. Don't forget the handkerchief, James. Ready? In you go. Perfect. All right, James, time to go. Hurry. How do you feel, James?
I hope I don't let you down.
You won't. Just remember you're the great Oscar Schumacher. You don't give a hoot for anybody. You can't hold us up. Mr. Schumacher's playing in a concert this evening. Or if you insist, we'll have to hurry. What's happening, huh? Colonel Vasco, I warn you, if you don't release this man immediately, you're going to make a public spectacle of yourself. The concert will have to be canceled, and the president is due there in 15 minutes' time.
The president will be more interested to hear of this arrest.
But to hear that his police force has mistakenly arrested a famous concert pianist to make the front pages from Texas to Tokyo.
Now we shall know who this gentleman really is. I have had a picture of Oscar Schumacher radioed from New York City.
There you are. That's him. Now you're satisfied?
It is not a good picture.
Well, now, what more do you want?
Shall I tell you what I think, Mr. Drake? I think you came to Calydus with a double, a man exactly like...
Oh, come now, Colonel. Where will I be able to conjure up an exact double for your Mr. Carpenter?
How many people are there in the world, Mr. Drake? 2,000 million? With the vast resources of the United States, it should not have been difficult for you to find a double. You planned to lead the double at the embassy while you escaped with Mr. Carpenter here.
It's a complicated plan. There's a very easy way to prove it.
I have all the proof I need.
You take him to the concert and see if he can play.
You know, Mr. Drake, that is exactly what I am going to do. I'm sure the president will enjoy seeing an enemy of the state unmasked before the people. And I will see that he is not disappointed. I shall escort Mr. Schumacher to the concert myself.
In that case, you'll pardon me if I go ahead. I have the final arrangements to check over, but don't be late.
Senor.
You all right, Oscar? I'm just going to pull round to the back of the concert hall. Going to stop outside the stage door. Vasco's behind us with Carpenter. Directly I open up, out you get and in through the door. And keep calm.
Yeah, sure. What have I got to lose, huh?
The president's already arrived.
Oh, good. Thank you very much. Well, here we go, Oscar. Don't worry. It's going to work.
Maestro?
Thank you, Colonel.
Oh, no, Mr. Drake. I have not taken my eyes off our friend until I see him sitting at the piano.
Mr. Schumacher's not accustomed to entertaining policemen before a concert.
I will be very quiet, Mr. Drake.
Mr. Schumacher, please.
The president has arrived. Are you ready, Oscar?
Ready as I can be.
Good luck.
glad you took my advice.
We'll see you after the concert is finished.
Congratulations. It was a rare pleasure.
It's very kind of you, Colonel.
Oh, invitation to take supper with the president. What a pity.
Well, you are not refusing.
Oh, Mr. Schumacher has a plane to catch. We must head for the airport immediately. It's a great disappointment to us. Thank you very much. Come on, smile, James. Sue's waiting for you on the plane, you know.
All the luggage you have, senor?
Good of you to see us off, Colonel.
Not at all. Now that we know who this gentleman really is, I thought it would be wiser to see him right onto the aircraft. We don't want any more confusions, do we, Mr. Drake?
Oh, there was never any confusion in our mind.
Come along, do not keep the senor waiting. Goodbye, senor. I hope to see you back again soon.
Yeah, Colonel, I'm sure you do.
Are you not going too, Mr. Drake?
No, I still have some business to clear up here. Would you mind giving me a lift, Colonel?
Certainly, Carlos.
Thank you.
See the maestro onto the aircraft. Do not leave until it departs. Where exactly do you want me to drop you, Mr. Drake?
To the palace, if you please.
But you refused the president's invitation.
Oh, I didn't refuse it. No, I'd like you to come with me. Be my guest.
I hope for your own sake, Colonel Vasco, that you have a very good reason for this interruption.
My apologies, Senor President, but James Carpenter has just flown out of the country. His escape was engineered by these two men.
You sure of this?
Oh, yes, it's quite true, Mr. President.
Assisting an enemy of my country is a very serious crime, Senor Drake.
On this occasion, I had your country's interests at heart throughout the entire operation.
How do you mean?
Mr. Carpenter was given very strict instructions as to what he was to say to the press when he landed in the States.
And what did you tell him to say?
That he had been given a full release and pardon through the generosity of President Juarez.
By what right?
I'm sorry, Mr. President. If you don't like that story, then of course it's not too late to get in touch with the aircraft and ask Mr. Carpenter to tell the truth, that the 5-year vigil is over, that he outwitted your police force, and that the chief of police himself escorted him to the airport.
Is this true, Colonel Vasco?
I thought he was James... Senor Schumacher.
If you consider it, Mr. President, I think you will agree that perhaps it was the best way out of a somewhat delicate situation.
Colonel Vasco, I expect to see you first thing in the morning. Senor Schumacher, would it be too much to ask you to play just once more?
Mr. President, it would be a pleasure.
Senor Drake, please be seated.
I'm obliged. Thank you.
America.